Hi, this is Anna Imagination, and welcome to the Ethical Asshole. I am your host, the Salty Bitch. We are talking about the difference between memorizing components and applying deductive reasoning. These words, I have needed these words for so long. Memorizing components, deductive reasoning. We all just need to really take a step back and breathe these words in. The reason why this is so important is because your brain has the ability to calculate deductive reasoning a lot faster than you can recall memory. Your brain has the ability to practice deductive reasoning faster than you can memorize. Your current educational system is designed to teach you memorization. My educational system that I got from Pythagoras and Plato taught me how to do deductive reasoning. And it also taught me how to select correct data to put inside my computer so that it will compute deductive reasoning like that. As opposed to, I'm going to memorize this and this and this. And see the difference? So instead of memorizing all this, my masters taught me deductive reasoning. Now, there are some things that you really need to be doing deductive reasoning for. And there's other things where you are going to want to really sit down and say, I'm going to read this book. And this is where you get into 3 tiers of learning. The 3 tiers of learning. The first tier is your passion. This is the stuff that you are going to devour, master, learn, dissect passionately, and it's going to become your obsession. It's the thing that you just can't get enough of, and your enjoyment is going to be through the roof when you do it. That is your passion. That is the first tier of learning. A teacher's job, if they were doing their job properly, is getting you to figure out what your tier 1 passion is. If you are 12 and you still haven't figured out your passion, your teacher done fucked up. Mother Nature will do this naturally if your teachers are smart enough to just get out of your way. Probably they're not, because they're glorified audiobooks. So as a result, you probably, like everybody else on the planet, are walking around going, I have no idea who I am, what I want to do in my life. And you might even be 54 plus going, I have no passion in life. And that's because your teachers done fucked up. When you go through this properly, your passion naturally comes out in you. Now, as soon as a person finds their passion around 4 to 8 years old, the very first thing they're greeted with is a parent usually going, oh, you can't do that. That doesn't make money. And as a result, you lose your passion because money is immediately the equation that everyone thinks about. So it's a really important moment to say, what did you want to do when you were 4? Because your 4-year-old self had it all figured out. Really, you did. What did you want to be when you were 4 years old? What did you want to do when you were 8? I wanted to be a philosopher when I grew up. Oh, here I am. Your creativity, your problem-solving skill, and your logical deduction is going to teach you later how to turn that into money, but that's not something you really need to be worried about when you pick a vocation. You need to be focusing on what is your true passion. That's your first tier. Now, your second tier is going to be your secondary. This is the stuff that you learn that you're going to devour until you have enough. You're going to get sated. Now, this is really important. Your passion is going to be insatiable. Your secondary passion will be sated. You're going to drink, fill up your cup, set it down. You might never come back to it again. Music is my secondary passion. I devoured that. I drink it. And I can put it down for 5 years. I get a little cranky. I have to have music playing, but I'm okay. I have a real hankering right now to compose some musical compositions and sit down and get back into composition. I don't have a piano right now that works. So I'm going, all right, I'm all right. I'm okay. But it's my secondary passion. Now, my primary passion is writing. I'm not okay if I'm not writing. But it's not just writing. It's also my brain and dissecting the brain, and it's ontological physics. So I'm not okay. I cannot put down ontological physics. I will be doing this. I'm going to be like, there is no deathbed in my future. I'm certain of it. I'm going to live forever or die trying. Catch 22, Joseph Heller. I can't take credit for that work. Beautiful work, but no, I didn't write that. I just quoted it. So that is my aspiration in life, to live forever or die trying. And I'm going to be like, oh no, there is no retirement for me. This is something that never crossed my mind. What do you mean retire? When you have a passion, you don't retire. You work until you die because it's a passion. The ontological physics. That's what you do. That's why Robin Williams was literally working right up until the last week of his life. It's what you do. I'm not nothing if I do not this. Okay, there's so many negatives in that sentence since I lost. That one got away from me. Anyway, that one just got well away. I don't know where that one went. I had 4 double negatives in that one. I'm just like, I don't know what I just said. But you do this because it's your passion. Your third tier of learning, and this is really what you need to know. Your third tier of learning is the stuff where you learn the basics. And when you learn the basics, you go, okay, I get the gist. I really need to look up what the word gist means so I know if it's derogatory or not, so I know if I should be using it. But you get the understanding of the basics, so you understand how it fits into the big picture, but you really don't go deep into it. So for me, that would be art. And by art, I mean drawing. I never got deep when it came to the draw. I did not. I learned the basics. I also learned the basics for painting. And I learned the basics for chemistry. I learned the basics for chemistry. I cannot say I learned the basics for biology because I was splicing roses by the time I was done with my garden. I went deep into biology. So when you start to weave together your 18 disciplines, first of all, there are 6 groupings. So don't let the number 18 intimidate you. I say 18. I want to point something out to you. The first grouping is music, and that is song, dance, and musical composition. So if you're a musician, you're going to be singing and dancing anyway. Okay, you're mostly going to be singing. So it's kind of like, oh yeah. So this is music. Music, song, dance. It's music. Painting, for instance, the second grouping is art. And the art is drawing, painting, and sculpting. That's art. So that's 2 already. That's literally 6 down out of 18. This is the kind of grouping we're talking about. So when I say there's 18 disciplines, that's actually 6 groupings, and each of those has a subgenre. And you're not going to be able to touch one without bleeding over into the others. You're just not going to be able to do that. So, like if you sing, there's a good chance you play an instrument. If you dance, you sing. Like those things all bleed together. So once you start to understand how they move together and this is the best part, is when you start studying an art, you realize, oh, it's just science. So now it's like, oh, well, if I studied art and I went, well, music. And I'm like, well, that's just physics. So I was studying physics while I was studying music. And then, so they overlap. A lot of them overlap. So don't think, oh my God, I have to study 18 things. If you do it the right way and in the right order, you're fine. So what you really want to do is find your passion. Now, once you find your passion, and this is vital, your passion becomes the educational grounding rod of your be all end all of comprehension. It's either going to be an art, it's going to be communications, story, or it's going to be science. And if you are an artist, you're going to be learning science through the art. If you're a scientist, you're going to be learning the art through the science. That's why I learned music through the science. I'm a scientist. So in order for me to understand the music, I had to understand, that's how I learned math and physics, was through music. So when I got my hands on music, it was just like, wow, math and physics in real life. I mean, that's what it is to me. It's math and physics in real life. I was so happy. Like, oh my God. So even though I was studying music, I was really studying art and math, or art and physics. It's the same thing. when you're an artist, you're just studying art or the science through the art because that's how you translate it. If you're a storyteller, oh, you're looking at logical sequence right there and how things connect. So you're going to be studying everything. That's just your primary language. So you want to find your passion because what you're really doing is finding your primary language so you can translate all of the other disciplines around your language. So the question is not what is your passion, it's really what is your language? Because you're not going to be able to go anywhere until you figure out your language. Now, once you figure out your language, oh, you're set. You really are set. The entire world is going to conform to your world. Now, this is where you become a chef of the academic disciplines. This is why you need philosophy, people. Is because let's say you're an artist, okay? Now you're going to have in art, you're going to have drawing, and you're going to have painting, and you're going to have sculpting. Now you're not going to do all of those at the same time. You're going to go through periods where you're just going to focus on painting. You're going to just do drawing. You're going to just do sculpting. And that's all you're going to focus on. And it might be 5 years just drawing, and then you're going to switch it up, maybe. And what you're going to do is to get your drawing better, you're going to pull anatomy into it. You're going to pull zoology into it. You're going to pull geometry into it, physics into it. You're going to pull mathematics into it. That's what you're doing with mathematics. You're also going to pull in sequencing when you learn in which order of operations to paint what and in what order. When you realize, okay, I want to draw X, but I need to make sure I draw the background first and then the middle ground and then the foreground, you're actually learning logic in that case. So now you're taking applicable logic and you're applying it to your art, but you're actually learning logic at that point. You're learning about perspective. That's all logic. And then as you polish this off, you're going to be learning how to communicate through your art. So now you're translating. Oh, art is a four-way translation, people. That's like a highly complex translational system. That's why I don't do art, is because it's really fun. It's like, oh my God, there's like, okay, I don't do art because I have no ability to translate visual into image, I can't do that translation path. That's a path, and I just have not. Yes, my daughter's really good at that, and I've analyzed her science and her brain and her subconscious mind, and I'm like, how are you doing that? Tell me the process. And we've broken it down to she's translating the image into her mind so she can see the image, and she can hold an image from optic into her mind. I can't do that. That's like the one part I can't do. I wonder if it's because I was blind for 3 days. I was like 12 when I was blind for 3 days, and I cannot hold image in my mind, which is why I don't draw, paint, because I can't hold image in my mind. I just can't. As soon as I take my eyes off of something, I can't hold it in there. And I can do the reverse. I can imagine something and then translate it out, but I can't do the reverse of that. And an artist can. So, and that's it really. There's an integration and a disintegration. We're back to the logic again. So as a writer, I can imagine it. I can reverse engineer it. So I can project it out and then put it down on paper. But an artist can do the reverse of that. They can disintegrate it and put it back. And I'm like, whoa, I can't. So they disintegrate and then they integrate. I can't do that. I can only integrate it. So you're pulling all of these different components from all of the different studies. But if you never find your passion, you're going to have a learning curve. And the reason why you have a learning curve is because you haven't been able to find your core passion, which is your primary learning language. And that language is the one where you translate everything else into in order for you to understand it. So you've got to find your passion. And the sooner you find what you're truly passionate about is when you find out, oh, this is my language that I speak. So the secondary is basically it's the support of the primary. And it modifies. It's the modifier. And once you get these two things down, you really learn how to start communicating. But your basics, you're not going to want to dissect with basics. You really don't. You should not be spending much time with your basics. The thing is, and here's the other thing, is it allows you to go through and really amplify and set things down and in order, so that when you're going through something and you're pulling all the pieces together, it allows it to translate. This is really interesting. My son's primary language is engineering. He understands logic, he understands sequence, he understands physics. Like that is his world. So he's logic, math, physics. That is his primary language. And he's really a logician and a linguist. That's where he understands word, which is why he's a writer, which is why he writes code for computers and he writes computer games and graphics. And everything that he consumes has to be translated into those languages. Now, when he started, it was a massive setback. Let him figure it out, and he's got to find his own path. And when he really kept going over to that area, it was okay, that's where he needs to be to translate. My daughter, my oldest, she is 100% medical. She understands medical science. She understands biology. She understands logic. So she is all about understanding that. And everything else over there has to be translated over into this. Now, her music. She dabbled with the piano, but again, I know she was hearing physics. And she was very hardcore in the sciences over there. She's way out there in the sciences. And she's studying the brain. That's what her passion is neuroscience. And while she's studying neuroscience in the brain over there, and she's pulling all of that in, my son is pulling in what he's got for engineering. My other daughter is pulling in the art. And once they've got their languages, now it's okay, everything conforms around it. So that's just how they translate. So when you are looking at your learning journey and you're trying to figure out which of these you should be doing, what you're looking at really is you are analyzing, and this is truly the most beautiful thing about this, is you are not memorizing the components. That's going to consume a lot of time. You're not going to be able to do that. You're applying deductive reasoning to your language. It's going to get you to compute things much, much faster. Now you're going to be using logical deduction to decide, what am I going to put into my computation? What components are actually going to be factors? So there's basically two kinds of factors. You have your origins, and you also have your consequences. Now, a consequence is basically a series of components that are literally a byproduct of the origin, but the origin is what will actually, that's the nugget of information. This is what I refer to as literally the golden nuggets of every academic discipline. So that if you learn just the golden nuggets, you don't need to learn anything else, because the golden nuggets will go right into your brain and you'll just logically deduce and be able to immediately generate conclusions based off of those golden nuggets. But you've got to be able to tell the difference between the golden nuggets and the rest of the consequence. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this information is not available in the traditional academic disciplines schools. It's not. This is the stuff that you learn and discover when you're going through Plato School. When you're going through Plato School, you're like, oh my God, I found a nugget. Eventually, this is what my work is. This is current research. So I have my current lab frontier work. That's fun stuff. I have my fun stuff where I write and I do my education classes. And that's really, I have a spectrum of those three things. So my frontier work, I have also my philanthropic work, and then I do my casual work. Let's call it that. So my casual work is really this space. That's where I come here and I talk about all the weird, awesome shit that I've learned. Philanthropy work, that's where I'm doing the Radical Global Healing Plan. That's where I'm putting together educational programs for schools, homeschooling, all that. That's where I'm working in Africa. That's where I'm doing a lot of other work worldwide. And my frontier work is where I'm actually reverse engineering stuff. So my day consists of me doing the fun stuff with my podcast and my books. And that's where I'm already taking out information and I'm teaching. I love doing that stuff. And then I do really weird shit with my playground. With the philanthropic work, that's where I do all of my humanitarian stuff for my helping out the planet. And what I'm doing is right now with my reverse engineering on my frontier, one of the things that I'm studying I am locating the nuggets of all of these different academic disciplines versus the consequence. So a great example of this is, I'm going to take philosophy for an example. I have this book, Philosophy Made Simple, and I took one look at it and went, oh, look at that. They did not apply the logical sequence to the logic book. For instance, again, there's a sequence. Chapter 1 is ethics. No. Chapter 1 needs to be how to learn, which is chapter 1 of how to learn. You go to a philosophy school and you're going to be taught how to learn. And they started you right off with physics or ethics. You don't get to touch ethics until later. The second course is political philosophy. And I went, what the fuck are they doing? That's like, where's existentialism? Because you need to break the ego first. The third class is metaphysics. And I'm going, what the fuck are you doing? Metaphysics is literally like, that's like fifth year philosophy. Why are they getting metaphysics so early? And then they get into philosophy of religion, which really needs to be the first course because that's when you learn about the archetype. The theory of knowledge, what is that even? What is this? Oh, okay. So I'm looking at it now. Empirical philosophy, rational theory of knowledge, the argument for objective reality. Okay, so the theory of knowledge is existentialism. So chapter 5 is existentialism, which is actually philosophy 101. Metaphysics is like 5-year philosophy, and they put it as chapter 3. And then chapter 6, the last chapter, is logic. It's not the last chapter. Chapter 6 is logic, which really needs to be first. Because, and this is why, I'll tell you why here in a minute. The next one is contemporary philosophy, which shouldn't even be taught because what the fuck? That's where they put existentialism. Like I said, their philosophy book is illogical. So, yeah. So there's nuggets. And there's only 5 nuggets. They are not in that book. Logic is one of those nuggets. The others are not the nuggets. They don't have the nuggets. So when I'm building my course, I'm like, yeah, okay, so we're going to make sure we have the nuggets of philosophy in there. So for English, writing, linguistics, logic. Oh, I got that one down. The nuggets would be word building, the ancient languages, PI, Proto-Indo-European chart. And if you, this is what it is. You want to spend about a day studying each one of those, just a day. And if it interests you, you're going to go. You don't need help. If it interests you, you're going to be like, this is fascinating. And your curiosity is going to carry you well into the depths of the Proto-Indo-European chart and our pie chart. And that's all she wrote. Like, you just need to get out of your way at that point and just let you go learn. And that's the point. So when you understand a nugget, the nugget is the buffet. It's the buffet. And when you find something that interests you, that's all you need. The teacher, I had supervisors when I was a child. I had supervisors in the first 12 years of my educational program. And that's when I was self-taught and I had a parochial school when literally it was a one-room schoolhouse. And I literally had supervisors and I loved that. They were not teachers. They were supervisors. They were babysitters to make sure that I was doing my DIY work, but it was very much to my schedule because it was DIY. So I got to do whatever the hell I wanted when I wanted, so long as my work was done, and then I could do whatever I wanted. I wrote books. So I just did my work and then I wrote books. I just did my work and then I wrote books. And that's literally what I did from the time I was like 7, 8. By the time I was 8, I was writing a screenplay. So it's just get out of my way, people. The brain will do what the brain does. You just got to get out of its way. Most children will do that. A writer will write at 4 years old and 5. A musician will dance at 4 and 5. You just got to get out of their way. They don't need help. What they need is people to get out of their way. So when you understand that a nugget is just a sampled buffet piece that you take, you go, that's lovely. It's not, I don't think it's for me. You're looking for what is for you. So you really want to be sampling all the nuggets to see what sparks your interest. Now, if something spikes your interest, that's where you need to go. You need to be free to go there. And this is where teachers are not allowing people to be free to go where they need to go. There's, no, my schedule is more important than you figuring yourself out. And that's what ends up happening is people are prioritizing a schedule above a child actually pursuing what they need to pursue for their own educational purposes, because they don't trust the educational system. They don't trust the natural education of a child. So, and it's something that we're definitely getting closer to as we go down this path in our culture and society. It's really encouraging to see this. So, and this is what our homeschooling program gives birth for, is wide birth of, okay, you're a musician, great. And what happens is, as soon as the child finds out, oh, I'm a musician, fantastic, play the piano and let the child indulge. And it's literally an indulgence learning. It's an indulgence learning setting. And if the child wants to play piano all day, fine. After a year, the child is going to want to get better, and they're going to realize all on their own, oh, if I want to improve this, I need to study math. If I want to improve this, I want to. They need relativity. And that's it right there. You need relativity to your passion in order to be interested in it. So this is what I need to say to you. There's going to be things where you don't need the relativity. I do not need the relativity to writing, word, and logic for me to love it. I love it. It's the origin. It's my core. However, and that's really a good way of putting it. However, in order for me to hold an interest with art, I don't. I would have to see the logic inside of the art. And because I struggle seeing the relativity, I'm not interested in it, because I don't see the relativity of the math, the physics, the science. The reason why I'm not interested in art is because that has the least amount of math, logic, and physics that I can see. And I'm looking at my gorgeous logic, math, physics going, what is the relativity of this? This is why I haven't studied calculus, is because why? Why? So I can get accurate at time. I don't value that. So why? I can measure just fine with logic and math. I can measure just fine with integration. I can measure just fine with the Descartes Cartesian coordinate system. Why do I need calculus? I want to learn calculus. I really want to learn calculus. It's an example. But I'm looking at it going, okay, it's not as much of a priority because measuring speed, I'm not interested in measuring speed. I've got frequency for that. And I think that's it really, is I'm using musical frequency to measure time. I measure frequency. That's probably why I have not studied calculus, is because I calculate time and space through frequency. I just use rate of frequency. And that's how I calculate time, is the frequency. That's timekeeping. I got to process this. I don't do distance. No, I do frequency. I want to know how often something happens. I look for a ratio. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's why. So now I don't need calculus, because I've got frequency to do all that for me. So why do I care? I can do all of that with music and frequency. So this is where you start to get relativity. And once you, so you're going to have your origin. This is the independent of your knowledge. Are we all following this? This is really important. This is it, is you're going to have an independent of your knowledge. Are you okay? Okay. You startled me. No, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. She's opening the window and I'm like, are you okay? It sounded like she fell for a minute. So the independent is whatever you love that's independent of all other study. It doesn't have to have anything. So you're going to have an independent in your study. The next thing you're going to have is a relativity, which means if it's related to, then I'll be interested. This is your secondary. So if it's related to, now you're interested in it. And if you're not free to find your independent, you're not going to be okay with your relatives. Because the things that are relative to your independent, you don't have an independent to find, so why would you care? You must have the independent in order to care or invest in all of the relatives. Now, the third thing is going to be, and we're going to say it, it's the non-relative. And because it's not relative, you're not going to study it. And this is it right here, is all learning, everything is relative to. So once you define your independent subject of passion, this is your primary language, then the next thing you're going to be doing is looking for what's inside your parameter of interest, and that's your relativity. After that, you're going to have other things that are not relative. So what you're really doing when you're picking up anything is you are looking for this. Now, you're not going to want to dissect, and this is where the educational system currently has this all backwards, is they make you dissect all of it. So as a result, you are memorizing components of not relative data, which is where you're sitting in a classroom going, oh my God, why do I have to learn this? And it's because they are forcing you to memorize components that are not relative to your independent string of what you really care about. And in order for you to care, you have to have relativity. Now, flipping that all around, this is why I hated PE in school. because physical PE, stretching body, had no relevancy whatsoever to what I loved. And I was also dance, ballet, stretching, yoga, and they wanted to do sports. And I really fucking hate that, can I just say? Like, why do I have to exercise your way? And they're sitting there putting that argument of, you have to exercise my way, but you're just doing sports. How about if I do yoga, ballet? Because, hey, that's athleticism too. I wanted to do swimming. They were never doing what I wanted to do. And it's not that we couldn't, it's that she had her own agenda. I actually did have a teacher who allowed me to do this, where for about 3 months, we were allowed to do our own ballet. We were allowed to do our own yoga. We were allowed to do our own exercising. We were still exercising, but it just wasn't sports. So we were allowed to do, we had like a little group where we were allowed to do the kind of exercising we wanted to do without having to dribble a fucking ball. And because there's no competition, I'm going to say it, and every ballet dancer watching this is going to get really pissed. There's no competition with that stuff. And they're like, you've never done, I've done ballet. There's competition, but not like that. Not like that. Okay, like that. It's that brutal, guys. I wasn't competitive with my ballet dancing. I just wanted to dance. So it was highly competitive, but that's not what I was there for. Not at all. So once you start to understand that this is it right here, is no one wants to be forced to memorize the components and dissect the subjects that are not relatable. And all of this is because teachers don't trust the natural learning process. That's what all of this is stemming from, is teachers don't trust it. So because they have trust issues over literally Mother Nature not doing her job, they think that they have to force it. And as a result, a lot of kids are being forced. They're not allowed to find their independent. They're not allowed to find their relative. And every now and then you get a student who's like, oh my God, I'm actually passionate about something. And they're like, wow, now I want to show you something. This is really interesting. And this is an hypothesis. My passion was music, which is physics and math. I got lucky because according to Plato, Pythagoras, the 12 ethics, myself, and math, logic, and physics, music is the first one in the lineup. So when I got my music, I was like, oh, I'm sick, guys, get out of my way. And the rest of it was done. Literally right out of the gate. As soon as I was beating on those drums in my mom's kitchen, I found myself because I was a musician, because I was a physicist. So my siblings didn't have this. My siblings did not have this at all. My sister is a woodworker and a carpenter. I would put that at sculpting. My sister was a sculptor. Now, my sister did not go into art class because she was told art class. She's a sculptor. She does carving, woodworking. She makes, not gourmet, what's the word? Luxury woodworking shelves. Like, she does shit like this. She's a sculptor. But because she didn't go into art, she never learned that she was a sculptor until she was almost 35, 40 years old, and she got her hands on woodworking. And this is the kind of stuff where, because we're not teaching these courses properly, that people don't realize what their vocation is until their 40s, because we're fucking it up when they're 5, 10 years old. And that's something really is, all right, let's talk about the first group. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about song. Let's talk about dance. Because it's not just music. It's math, it's logic, it's physics. It's frequency, it's sound, it's science. Let's talk about dance. You're talking about exercise. You're talking about breathing, meditation, yoga, body movement. You're talking about Tai Chi. You're talking about using your body to transfer communication. You're talking about song, the ability to literally put your voice in with science itself, and you integrate with physics, you beautiful bitch. Like, that's the kind of stuff that goes together. You step into the world of drawing, art, painting, and sculpting. What you're really doing is molding. You're shaping right with your hands. Do you want to do metal work? Because that's here. That's in the sculpting world. Do you want to do carving? Do you want to do chainsaw, like taking it to wood? That's sculpting. It doesn't have to be clay on a potter's wheel. You have to literally mold something physical into a shape. Do you want to be an architect? So guess what? That is sculpting. It's just with a whole bunch of beautiful geometric shapes, and you're building it into blocks like this thing behind me. And when you start talking about painting, when you start talking about drawing, it's that four-way communication. Now, when you get into reading and writing, what you're really doing now is you are talking about the voice. You're talking about expressing through translation. And there's a whole lot of stuff happening in scientific method that's literally parallel to that, that a lot of people don't understand. You're talking about your relationship to your intuition. You're talking about your relationship of literally reverse engineering your intuition into the sculpting of word. That's what word is. You are sculpting it. We're talking about word building, word compound, and you're now molding with word compound so that you can take a sound, a syllable, we're back to music again, and we're shaping it into a form so that it's defined. This is definition, which is, by the way, parallel to what you get with mathematics with defining space. So somebody who's an engineer who's drawing up blueprints or is running XYZ axis on a center point of zero is also over here drawing, or they're writing and they're reading. They're now painting pictures with word, transferring that word over into image. Let's step into theater stage. Now you're talking about human connection, power economics. Now you're talking about how to make a communication with another human being. You're talking about trade, commerce. Yes, economics is right here in theater and stage. That's really what you're doing. That's why you have an audience and you have the person on stage, is because you're having that interaction. And when you start going through the logical flow of sequence of events, you're talking about also the authoritative power in your voice, your ability to translate all of that. All of this is related. Your ability to communicate, make a connection with other people. Human connection, networking is all theater and stage. You want to teach, you got to get on the stage, because that's where you learn that. You want to know how to connect with people, you've got to get your ass on the stage. Oh my God, poetry. Poetry is the ability to write, carve out, structure word sentence to the rhythm and the beat and the music that is physics. So you take physics, you take music, you take word, and you put it all together, and now you've got poetry, and everything moves with a beat through the rhythm of life. And depending upon how you move and ebb and flow, it breathes, it moves, it goes with you. And that is poetry. It's absolutely tapping into the rhythm that you find when you look into physics, when you find that you look into theater stage, when you type it into word, music, linguistics, and it all comes together into this gorgeous verbal communication that is theater stage and performance. And this is what the metric is. This is how you teach, and this is how you connect with people, because people connect through that beat and that pulse and that rhythm. That is how we ebb, and that is how we flow. It is found in nature. It's the way we move, which is why Plato had me stating 9 of these things, so we could all figure out how to move like it's a thing with him. And once you understand that pentatonic rhythm, once you understand any kind of rhythm, and it's that ability to immediately switch from one kind of a rhythm over to the next, so you can connect with people, because when you connect with people, you're finding their frequency, you're finding their rhythm, and you're finding which beat that they live to according to the rhythm of life. And that's what you're doing when you learn theater and stage. You want to be a teacher, you got to learn theater and stage, because people live and breathe and die at the rhythm of life. You step into logic, you step into linguistics, you step into physics. It's tying it all together, because it's how we breathe, and it's how we move, and it's how we understand the words. This 18 disciplines is nothing but our comprehension and our understanding of the world that we're in. And if you don't understand the rhythm, if you don't understand the way they all move, you're only getting 1/18 of the language. So you're only speaking with verbs, or you're only speaking with predicates, or you're only speaking with vowels. You're going to need the entire cocktail combined together to communicate, to transmit, to receive, to understand how the human circuitry exists, so you can make a connection with another person. Because if you don't, if you only study science, you're cut off from the rest of the world. And if you only study art, you'll never understand what's beyond the art that you study. And if you never study anything more than just reading and writing, you'll never be able to understand how one bridge connects to the other side of the bridge, because you are just isolated in your own world. It's the importance of understanding how they're all integrated to come together. And that is what all of this is absolutely about, over and over again. This is why all of the studies must be mastered. And it doesn't take absolutely devouring and dissecting all of these. It only takes the nuggets from all of the 6 core pieces. And if you have a master, they can deliver it to you in a fraction of the time, which is why you need to raise your standards, which is why you need to know if you've got a good teacher or a bad teacher, because you don't have much time. And if you are wasting your time on poor quality teachers or poor quality information, then you are literally memorizing components without actually learning any kind of logical reasoning or deduction in which to know how to apply it in real life. This is the difference between Pythagorean philosophy and everything else that's out there. That is the difference. Thank you so much. May the kindest of words always find you.